And hello, welcome to the movie reviews. I just got back from seeing Malignant. If you don't know what this movie is about, it's about a woman who is having visions of people being killed as if she's in the eyes of the killer, and she doesn't know why. So this movie takes us down this road of her connection to who this is, why it's happening. It definitely has a level of camp to it. And I think that camp, if you're going to use the element of camp in a movie, it is an art form. And you can either do it really, really well, a la House from 1986. If you know that movie, you are my person, because that is a favorite. And if you know of that movie, then you're really cool because it's one of my favorites. I rewatched it when I was pregnant, and I just really felt like it held up. And as an adult, I enjoy it so much more. The humor behind it, there's scary moments. Like as a kid, it was a scary movie to me. But as an adult, I can get why it's creepy, but just the camp is so well done. And I feel like when I think about that element, if I'm going to compare any movie to a movie that does it really well, it's always to House. It's House, Ding Dong, You're Dead. With William Katz, is that his name? From Carrie. Oh, that reminds me. That reminded me of something else that it reminded me of. Actually, I think I could say it in the summary without giving too much away. So it had that campy factor, it made fun of itself, and it had like these funny pauses at certain points where it had like this dramatic pause, and it was very like kind of soap opera-esque, but again, done in a really good way to where it's just super funny. And overall too, like aside from the camp factor, it just did have elements of classic horror, even from the look of the movie poster. And then when you're watching the movie, you can see nods to it. You can see nods to classic horror and just straight up monster movies. I kind of saw little reflections of Carrie in the movie. And while the movie was going on, I thought I knew where it was going, and it went there and beyond. And the twist, which could have been really bad, was done so well, and it just kind of gets back into the camp element of it. It was a very original movie. I would say just really well done. I would definitely recommend, if you want to see an original horror movie, James Wan, who did the Conjuring universe, and what do I always forget? I forget because I've never seen any of the I've seen 2 Conjuring movies, the first one and then the latest one, and then Insidious, which I should probably see, but I've never seen any of the Insidious movies. He did this movie, and I don't know like the backstory of it, like how he came up with the concept or anything. It's obviously not based on a true story. I would definitely recommend you go see it. Worth it. It's so nice to go to a movie and see a movie that you obviously were drawn into it to a degree when you saw the trailer, but then having it be so much more and be so pleasantly surprised, kind of like how I was whenever I went to go see Night House. I reviewed that movie as well. That one was so good, and this one is kind of along that same line. So if you have seen the movie, let me know what you thought of it, and we can discuss it in the comments. So here come the spoilers. It takes place in Seattle. I don't know if I already said that. I live in the Seattle area. I always love anything that is set in Seattle or just in the Pacific Northwest in general. I say this all the time. It's my favorite part of the country. In my opinion, it's the most beautiful part of the country. And I just love how anything creepy, remotely creepy, is always set in this region. As I was driving to the movie tonight, it was a little bit cooler of a day. I wore this like zip up hoodie because it was a little cold. And on my way to the movies, it was still light outside and I could see the mountains in the distance kind of covered with clouds. And then on my way back, I could see the silhouette of the mountains in the darkness, and it was just beautiful. And the leaves are changing, and it honestly, like, it doesn't get better than the Pacific Northwest. But one other thing about Seattle, so part of the movie shows the Seattle Underground. So when you come to Seattle, you can tour the original city of Seattle, which is underground. Apparently there was a fire, and when they rebuilt the city, they rebuilt it above the city so that there wouldn't be flooding, I think is the story. But if you visit, you can take these tours. When we visited before we moved here, when Danny was here for his interview, we did the Seattle Underground tour, and it was really fun. But one of the characters works in the Seattle Underground in the movie, and it turns out to be the mother of the main character, the biological mother, because the main character was put up for adoption when she was a child. And you kind of see how that ties in later on. The main character's name is Maddie. That is her adoptive name. And we see her pregnant. You can tell right away in the opening part of the movie that her relationship with her husband is strained. She's had multiple miscarriages. He is an alcoholic, an abusive alcoholic, and is tired of seeing miscarriage after miscarriage. That is a point of contention in their relationship. So he fights with her, throws her into a wall. Apparently unleashes this parasitic twin inside of her brain. And that's when all these killings happen. But she doesn't know what is happening. When the killings happen, she is paralyzed, almost like sleep paralysis, and watches them happen. And she thinks that she's seeing them from the eyes of the killer and doesn't understand why. Her whole story will unfold, and we will find out that she was born to a 15-year-old girl who had been assaulted and gave her up for adoption. And as the movie was going along, I thought that I knew where it was going. I thought that, okay, she had a twin that died and she has some kind of psychic connection, and maybe these things are happening psychically, or like the twin is a ghost or something. When it is revealed, when the whole story is revealed for why she was in the hospital, why she can't remember the early part of her life, she had a parasitic twin on the back of her, and they were connected at the brain. They cut out the twin, or cut out the cancer, and the part of the brain that they couldn't cut out that would risk killing Maddie, or Emily, which was her birth name, they push it back in her head. And up until her adoptive baby sister was born, she had this connection with her twin brother, who she called the devil, later called Gabriel, and he would try and get her to do things, really bad things. And when her sister was born, it all stopped because she had this connection with her, and she kind of pushed her parasitic twin back in her mind. But the twin is unleashed when her abusive husband slams her against the wall, and it kind of busts her head open, which she never goes to the hospital to get fixed. And when these attacks happen while she's asleep, when she wakes up, there's like her wound has reopened. So obviously you can see that there's something with that. You could tell that there's a meaning in that. And she goes to the police and tells them that she can see what's happening through the killer's eyes. They suspect it's her, but then the police officer kind of ties together the killings with all the hospital personnel that were on her case back in the early 90s. And he gets to an apartment right after the third person has been killed, and the killer is still in the apartment, and he sees the killer. It is flesh and bone, which surprised me because I thought it was like not going to be something tangible. And you see its face, and it looks like a big, tumorous situation. And then you think, wow, okay, so her twin is alive? But it's more than that. When they reveal the twin on the back of her, I was initially really disappointed, but only for a second because it gets better. I was disappointed because I was like, okay, how is this original? How is this going to be good? But when they show how she kind of blacks out and he takes over her body and how the body contorts, and because in the beginning I thought, okay, well, the stature and the long hair, like, it's almost like this twisted mirror image of Maddie. And then you realize it is her, but it's her backwards. And then Gabriel comes out of the back of her head and takes over. And then she is like just along for the ride, basically. The vision of that too, though, with Gabriel being, very thin, black hair over his face for the majority of the time, it looked a lot like the early 2000s American movies that are remakes of Japanese horror movies. Like The Ring, like with the coming out of the, the frame with the hair and the, whatever. It kind of... Sorry, my baby monitor distracted me. It kind of looked like that. So there was I just feel like a lot of nods to classic horror, to monster movies, to, even the early 2000s, the look of the villain. And so I thought that the way that they executed the parasitic twin was very original. It definitely held your attention. Just so well done. At a few points in the movie, you hear a familiar song, and it is Where Is My Mind by the Pixies. But it's redone, it's made to be more theatrical, just, really great at certain points in the movie. I really appreciated that. So, overall, great movie, very impressed, very original, definitely recommend you go see it. If you liked this review, please leave a like and comment, let me know what you thought about the movie, and subscribe if you would like to see more movie reviews from me or other kinds of videos. I am a mom of a 2-year-old. I've got a lot of mom videos that I want to do that I should probably jump on before she gets any older. So, I'll see you in my next video. Good night.